Much of the conversation about the coronavirus is centered around either the economy or physical health, and this is by no means a surprise. These are two concerns that dominate our thoughts anyway. However, what I'm wondering is what sociology has to offer to this conversation. One of the few places where I am seeing sociologists get a little bit into the public sphere in conversation is we have this way that we're conflating physical distance with social distance. And there's this idea that you need to be a good citizen at this point, you need to maintain social distance, right? That's the term that's being used, but that's not really what we're referring to. And there's two different challenges present, right? You have to keep physical space from people, but what we're trying to do and what we're craving is ways to maintain those social ties.
Right, absolutely. It's one of the first things that popped up in the first couple of weeks and it was sociologists primarily, but there were some broader social scientists getting into it. But really the argument was we shouldn't call it social distancing, we should call it physical distancing because people should still continue to connect one way or the other, which then, led to a series of serious but also cliched memes about Zoom calls. Everyone was kind of armchair Irving Goffman or a neophyte Irving Goffman, just observing the bizarre things that we were all experiencing. But, Durkheim's point was, if he was sitting here, he'd be like, yes, be a good citizen, physically distance, but we have to be careful of just how much we social distance. That is just how much connectivity we lose. And, one of the cool things that have happened, and I'm not so sure whether people have been collecting data on this or not, but one of the questions that has been lingering in sort of the interaction rituals tradition is whether or not online ritual occasions, online, assemblies are as powerful producer of collective conscience and collective effervescence as the kind of co-present rituals Durkheim would only be familiar with. And I remember Randall Collins in Interaction Ritual Chains raised this, and that was 2004 before the internet became anything like it is today. But he argued, and I don't know whether he's changed his perspective, but he argued that online could never fully reach that. There was something about the physical presence of being another, maybe the smells that we actually don't perceive as strongly as other animals might, the sort of electricity that is maybe present between the way our brains are firing, maybe the sweat and the palpability, the ability to see our full bodies, of course, is a really big deal because we communicate so much through body language. But I think we've got some answers, at least anecdotally, that online, at least teaching classes, having happy hours, social hours, online is not quite as satisfactory as co-present, right? And so social distancing is a problem. It is a problem, I think, right now.
And this is completely anecdotal at this point. I'm moving away from being a proper researcher or a proper sociologist. But one of the things that I've been interested in is how there seems to be a certain window where it works, right? So for those first 2 weeks, you hear a lot of celebration of, oh yeah, I'm connecting to all these people online. I'm having that online happy hour with friends I haven't seen for a while. I'm enjoying it. I still feel like I'm part of a community. And then it's a month later and people are saying, well, that online happy hour doesn't seem to have that same payback as it did before. So I wonder if there's a way that the online can be a substitute, but only when it's still connected or it's recent that you've had those physical connections.
I think you're right. I think there was a built-up tension and the technology was suddenly thrust upon us and it felt good amidst the sort of emotional distress that people were experiencing, and it felt really good. But then, it also has all the same problems that anything else has, so I start seeing on Twitter, for instance, people complaining that, they're introverts and now they're being thrust into having a Zoom meeting after a Zoom meeting after a Zoom meeting, and they don't know where to escape, which is funny because they're stuck at home. But all the trappings of modern life and real life are there on Zoom, but without, I think, a lot of the payoff. And microlinguists probably are so excited because turn taking and all that stuff is so difficult. And when you have 4 or 5 or 10 people on a Zoom call, it's almost impossible to actually have a satisfying conversation.
The thing that inspired me to ask you to come on to talk about this was you recently had a post on your website, and it had the rather happy title of Panic, Grief, or the Pain of Social Distance. And when I saw that title, I initially thought that, all right, this is where you're going to work through some of Durkheim's concepts. You're going to explain some of the challenges that go along with not having a connection to the community. But you didn't bring up Durkheim at all. And instead you turned to, and I'm going to do my best with the pronunciation, I think it's Jake Panksepp, who is a neuroscientist, and you used his ideas to build your argument. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what Panksepp can help us understand about our current predicament.